Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, our hunt continues for the elusive Goblin City, the legendary location that we seem to have narratively tied to ending the current crisis. Hard to say if that's how it'll actually work out, but at this point we're pretty well committed, what with being out in the middle of nowhere and all. Thus, the hunt continues across Iron Oak Grove, past the Glaucus domain. And I suppose if all else fails, we've got the Black Monolith right there. Which I would kind of rather save for the undead crisis, but it'll do in a pinch if we really can't find anything else to do. But, fingers crossed. I'm sure we'll find some other way to die. Bloodcleaver's Den. Many orc berserkers. Okay, not what we're looking for, but a nice warm-up and a good chance to rack up some more XP for evening. As the raiders continue to wander the wilderness, their intended prey remained frustratingly elusive, though not so the goblins' greater, clumsier kin, who seemed all but incapable of actually laying low. Their mere presence, a gaping wound on the landscape. Their every action, a casual, callous, or perhaps even calculated invitation for conflict. They thrived on violence, confident as they were that they could outpower any foe. Obviously a mistake, as evidenced many a time before, but not the sort of life lesson that your average orc tended to walk away from. And this time would be no different. The raiders rushing in, once again robbing their orcan enemy of their momentum. Rook stepping up after, running the first one through. There we go, that's the main thing to worry about, that man splitter there. Maul the Marauder. And the last few raiders shored up the line. Evening included, carefully positioned as he was, amidst other more veteran vanguard. Alois annihilated the lead orc's resolve, scattershotting the two behind for good measure, carving away at their own crumbling confidence. Diego ducked in, spear set, and Giannis plugged the last gap. Before the berserkers pushed back. Though robbed of momentum as they were much less a threat. Val throwing through one's thigh. Random rocked a ruffian. Another quickly stepping up in his place. And Alois reloaded. A second blistering blast sounding out, though this time only bruising their burly foes. Though Rook certainly stuck the landing, right through an orc's face. Evening. Lights out for another lout, courtesy of the company's newest number. The rest of the raiders nodding in approval. Before going about culling some additional cads themselves. I do think long-term, though, the poleaxe isn't really going to work out. I like it, but it's one of those weapons, I think, in retrospect, will work best if we have at least two, so one can stagger and the other can combo off it. But, we'll stick with it for a while longer. See if we ever get a chance to actually rock that combo. Valin nicked a neck. And the last few orcs started to waver. Though there were still a few man-splitters in the mix. So they couldn't let their guard down just yet. Giannis paused mid-swing, then nodded for evening to take the next target. Seymore slaughtering another foe on south and circling round. Oh, and Valin imperiled. Suddenly things became that much more serious, though not by much. Is what I'd say if you could, in fact, rotate with stunned allies, which you cannot, so yeah, still a problem. But not a huge one. I think we're still good. Nice. And once again, evening fell upon them. Seymore sawing some scum. Mansplitter maimed, but still prompting peril. Giannis cut past another foe. The rest of the raiders rapidly rallying. One berserker poised to strike. Though not the main one we're worried about. Yeah, that's fine. Giannis can take it. And there we go. The fight all but finished. Evening circling round. Poised to see if he can get in one last strike. Though, honestly, odds are against him at this point. As evidenced by Giannis yeeting yet another skull. Diego digging into the last. Ooh. Who was that? I think Seymore? No, not Seymore. Giannis again. You greedy gladiator. Leave some for the rest of us. But nicely done, Raiders. Obviously, that was never really going to be a huge challenge, but it was a nice chance to very lightly resupply. I suppose Berserkers don't really cart around much worth making off with. Speaking of which, yeah, we're going to go ahead and dump these mushrooms. I've been thinking about it for a while now, but while they're fun in theory, I've really balked at actually using them ever since I learned that they can inflict a variety of long-term debuffs. Apparently normal potions can too, so I mean I'm kind of glad we haven't really leaned on those all that much. Not the anatomist elixirs, but rather the normal potions like the resolve boosting brew, or the one that lets you ignore temporary injuries. That's it, let's push on. We've still got a Goblin City to find. We'll circle around this range, then follow it back east. Which is entirely unnecessary, because there it is. Rulgazix, a great goblin city nested on the remains of an ancient fortress, protected by dark and towering walls. It is host to a standing army of vicious greenskins. Though, sadly, finding it is only the first step. While marching, a man crosses paths with the RetconRaiders. He's well-armored and appears rather knightly, save for one feature. A bone necklace hanging from his neck. With each step, it clatters with sickly hollowness against his breastplate. You regard the stranger and his skeletal adornments with caution, lest he make a belt out of your assorted parts. Evening, sellswords. The warrior waves. There's an unseen weight to this man, as though surrounded by dead air, or perhaps the souls of his victims. He nods and continues speaking. You seem the greenskin skinning sort, and that's the sort of company I'd be most agreeable to join in. Malafnoy exchanges a glance with you and shrugs. He whispers his indifference. If he's a problem, we can handle him. The man shakes his head. Oh, I'll be no problem. I just want to kill orcs and goblins. What more do you need to know? Once these greenskins are taken care of, I'll be out of your hair. And we have our orc hunter. Just a temporary recruit, but we can always use more warm bodies, especially given what we're about to get ourselves into. Plus, it's a chance to tag another raider in off the list. Let's see what we're working with here. Hans the Orc Slayer. That's not your name. You don't have to use pseudonyms. We're all friends here. Hate for greenskins. Yep, that tracks. And sure footing. Interesting. Not that it really helped you all that much, though you are level 9, so that'll give us ample opportunity to shore that up. Comes in with a two-handed hammer and a basic chain hauberk. We can definitely upgrade that armor. Necklace is just a vanity item, no actual mechanical effect. Alright, one sec. Let me bust out the waiting list. And we're back with our new Orc Slayer in tow, properly armed, armored, and leveled up. And, he's a nice middling bro. Not the best stats, but serviceable for our needs. The Anonymous fussed over the newest recruit, though they swiftly lost interest once it became evident he was merely a man. Though of perhaps more interest was his knowledge of the legendary Goblin City. Apparently his encounter with the raiders had been a happy coincidence, for otherwise he would have died, dashing himself against those reinforced walls. But now he would perhaps actually survive, seeing this impossible task through. As the raiders once again resumed their march, Mal fell into step beside him. Don't think we ever got your name. No response. The Orc Slayer's jaw remained set, his eyes distant. Yeah, I get it. You've been through the grinder. We all have. But we gotta call you something out there, so either tell us your name or we'll just make something up. Another moment of silence, and then he finally spoke. Voice somehow even more distant than his gaze. Douglas. Doug Graves. Mal eyed him for a moment. Sure, Doug it is. Come on, let's get a look at this city. And so they did. Random shaking his head. May the old gods have mercy on us for allowing such a sight. The Goblin City is sequestered between opposing mountains. Saying the goblins built their city around the mountains is like saying a soldier sheathed his sword in his enemy's chest. The gibbering greenskins didn't add to the terrain. They desecrated the place whole, putting mines where trees used to be, constructing a maze of rusted shanties and lean-tos, raising cultish totems and digging primitive sacrificial pits, piling unused timber as though the mutilation of the mountains was not truly finished without blatant waste. But beyond the goblin rubbish does stand a central core of the city, a number of towers unambiguously set apart from the riffraff. These are clearly ancient requisitions, the stonework being unlike anything you've ever seen, and surely beyond the greenskin's scope of construct. The goblins walking amongst the walls are upright and boastful, as though invigorated by being allowed to stride such hallowed grounds. Nestled inside the fortress seems to be some sort of higher nobility, well-dressed goblins with servants mucking about, which means the same thing it does when it comes to humans. There's good loot to be had. A rare sight are the little ones running about. Families, if that's what the greenskins truly have, will mean that a fight here will be a vicious one, The little maggots will have more to protect than just their savageness and greed, and that which must extend itself beyond its own vices is also that which has been weakened. The captain considered his options, then looked to Douglas. So what exactly was your plan? Hopefully not just to die. The Orc Slayer remained mute, and after observing the city for a while longer, you realize that you can't simply assault it head-on. There are far too many to take on, and with the numbers already on their side, it is even likely the families of the goblins will partake in your slaughter, and you will have only enshrined the city whole with further experience in slaughtering humans. So you wait, and think. And then the man approaches. He's bound in light armor with a leafy hood used to camouflage the metal beneath, and a multitude of swords clank from his hip, and a spear yokes across his back one way, and an axe the other, and a bandolier of potions chime as he comes to a halt. You can't see his face, much less his eyes, and he's dripping with the blood of recent action. Douglas, he grunts, nodding towards your new friend. Doug nods mutely in return, then looks to you. Ah, I see, the hooded stranger says. Well, despite their cruelties and cruel appearance, the goblins are in a way a civilized group. They'll respond to violence that is at its base nothing more than senseless savagery. If you wish to draw them out, then you must do as the orcs do. My plan was to slaughter as many as I could find out in the fields, raiding parties, scouts, and the like, but it's just as well that their encampments are destroyed in great number. Together, the carnage will be a pincer upon their fears, for they fear reckless orcs more than anything, and will seek to preemptively snuff them out. The man nods as though you've already agreed to something. So choose, traveler, the manner in which you wish to have this city laid flat. Slaughter their raiding parties and scouts, or burn their forward posts. Whatever you do, I'll do the other. Alone. And we shall meet here when the summary of our actions is obvious. Well, we're in the thick of Goblin territory, and I did just walk past a Goblin outpost, so that feels like our best bet. Likely tougher fights, but also better loot. We'll take the posts. Pass one on the way here. Should be easy enough to do. You tell the stranger that the RetconRaiders will pursue the destruction of the encampments. He nods. Excellent, traveler. Excellent. The goblins send raiding parties frequently, and when they come home to ashes, they will return here, spreading word of destruction, and be let out. Very well. We have a plan, and by my own experiences, you need only march down around 5 encampments. You take their posts. I will take their parties. He heads off, but you call out asking who he is. Or if perhaps it would be a better idea to join together. He ignores you completely and walks away. Douglas grunts, then turns and walks the opposite. Right then, guess we'll be back for the post-mortem. And yeah, 5 outposts, that's a bit of a tall ask, that's why I've never done this one before. But I think we can get it done. You know, we've got one just south. Heraz, Knox. And then I'm sure at least a few others around. It'll take 2 expeditions to get it done, I think. I don't think we're going to do all 5 in a single pass. Let's see what we've got here. Nighttime. Best time to hit them. Okay, that's actually not... That's not awful. No plethoras. Let's rearrange our line a bit. We're going in at night, so we want to pull any range fighters who don't have night vision, which is basically just arrow and mark. That means double wide front. All our best blades brought to bear. And let's get this train wreck started. You know, maybe not my best idea, but what can I say? Opportunity knocks. So who are we to ignore it? Here we go. The raiders approach the first outpost in dead of night. The goblins becoming aware of their clumsy, heavily carapaced approach as they drew near, but under cloak of night, the goblin sharpshooters found themselves unable to land any effectual hits, at least in theory. I mean, I'm speaking a bit too soon. Though the clatter of arrows off Rax's reinforced plate certainly seemed to bode well for the assault. Arrow returning fire, piercing a pest's palm. And as those scoundrels scurried about, the raiders set their resolve and then rushed the rusted ramparts. Some using interposing underbrush to their advantage, others, like Rax, simply striding forth, all but daring those precocious punks to continue pummeling them with projectiles. After all, the poison was useless if it couldn't actually penetrate their plate. Though, you know, some, like Seymore, might be more vulnerable to it than others. Suppose we'll see how that plays out. Verlin vaulted to the fore, Mal moving behind. Seymore surging up. Douglas darting into some brush. And the goblin volley continued. Though thankfully ineffectual even at this closer range. Mark taking a moment to envenom his ammo. A nasty surprise for the ne'er-do-wells nearby. Another venomous volley enveloped the raider front line. Arrow firing back, but to no avail. Thankfully, the goblin shortbows lived up to their namesake and came up short. And the raiders, finally near enough to strike, swiftly engaged. Giannis quickly carving an entrance. Two goblins already dead. Though there were precious few other approaches available. Diego instead circling wide. Yeah, that works. Oop. And there came the secondary volley. Bolas and nets bombarding the besiegers. Raiders briefly stymied. They're not too badly slowed. Hopefully. Undergrowth erupted, roots wrapping roughly round the raiders' southern line. Rax ignoring it all as he instead waded right into the center of their camp. A risky position to take, of course, but one that should hopefully pay off. Several stalled raiders took a moment trying to free themselves up, tiring themselves out in the process, and with varying degrees of success. But some at least still got some licks in. Mal, for example, gutting a goblin. And finding their fusillade had failed. The goblins fell back on Plan B, starting a fighting withdrawal. Trying to reinforce their position, bottleneck the besiegers, isolate and eliminate. Though, again, thankfully without much luck. Honestly, the main thing I'm watching out for here are poison daggers that all it takes is one armor-penetrating strike to essentially neutralize Rax. The rest of it's really just delaying the inevitable. The spark of a match, followed split second later by echoing boom. 3 goblins staggering, poison shrapnel deeply embedded in their wounds. Not quite their own medicine, but a taste of something similar nonetheless. A fitting fate for these fools. Arrow angling a shot overhead. Glancing off the goblin shaman, no real harm done, but the dastardly druid was now on notice. Rook running another rapscallion through, carving through kidney. And Rax reared back. A mighty swing unleashed. 3 of the goblins surrounding him, simply coming apart. Entrails and appendages pelting their packmates. Others nearby, understandably shaken by the experience. The raiders on the flanks remained regrettably stalled. But the goblin line had all but disintegrated on center. More and more of the raiders rushing right in. Mal carving a new entrance. Yeah, I'd say we're in pretty good shape at this point, though we do still have that Overseer on the field. As long as he's there, we are still at very real risk of suffering an actual injury. Though, you know, aside from that, I'd say that victory's otherwise assured. Not, of course, that the goblins themselves are ready to accept that. Rather, they responded with yet more jabs and jibes. Both equally ineffectual. Another blast from Mark, evaporating yet one more. Though also clipping Mal in the process, which is fine because he's got the armor to handle it, and I think... Yeah, that one was not envenomed. I did read up on it. Apparently Poison Shot is only effectual for the first 4 targets hit. So, I mean, obviously not ideal that we're hitting Mal, but honestly, aside from some extra repairs, no real harm done. Though I am kind of hedging my bets that we're going to find a decent number of repair tools on site. Rook ran yet another through. Focus shifting to the shaman. Or at least the ambusher beside him. Seymore finally set free. Giannis continuing to carve his way through. The shaman finally falls. Rax takes a moment to recover his breath. And yeah, at this point, the Goblin garrison is all but gone. The vast majority routing, but for the Overseer himself. And a scant few skirmishers. Not that running will get them anything, of course, aside from dead. But to be fair, they were going to get that anyway. Oh, well, actually, that one. That one might get away. But definitely not that one. Dispatched by Diego. Another by Rax, the Overseer himself, soon to follow. Arrow took a knee. Oh, and exhaustion finally setting in. But it's fine. Again, we pretty much won. It really just comes down to who gets to claim these last few kills. Random taking one. Seymore a second. Bit of a split decision there. Sigmar a third, Mal a fourth. Ooh, and I think Douglas, was that? No, his head came off. That must have been Rax. As brutal as it might be, I don't think you can hammer someone's head off. At least not while also keeping it intact. You can explode them, but that looks slightly different. Rax racked the last on North. And the Raiders converged. A mere one remained. Though Verlin was poised to eviscerate. And thus the Nox fell silent. The Raiders faring fairly well. Yeah, no significant injuries. Very nice. We'll take that poison to replenish our stock. We'll definitely grab that net. Sadly, not much in the way of tools. Really could have used a restock there, but I guess... Yeah, we'll probably have to go back for a resupply sooner rather than later. We'll take the Overseer crossbow. That's a good 1,500 before resale markdown. And I think that might be it. I'm not really seeing much else worth dumping. Or rather, I'm not seeing anything else here worth dumping something for. Like the throwing spears we can live without. Those I have now come to terms with the idea that we'll simply never use. Go ahead and cycle out the wounded, keep the line fresh. Don't think we have time for another full-fledged fort, but hopefully we can find something slightly easier to close out on whilst still progressing our post-mortem. Though... Yeah, let's, well... No, we can Now that we found the city, it's not as important for us to keep the bird's eye view. We can just push out here, fill out the rest of Iron Oak Grove, then perhaps double back. Yeah, that's fine. Aside from Goblin outposts, we're also keeping an eye out for our final legendary location, the Fountain of Youth, which, once we find, will open the door for a potential swordsman, since aging does tend to be their undoing. They start with relatively solid stats, but several penalties due to their advanced age, and then eventually a penultimate event that usually renders them useless, though can be undone by the Fountain of Youth. Which, to be fair, can also be used to undo permanent injuries on other characters as well, so I mean it's just a nice thing to have in general, even if you don't go the swordsman route. Wow, nothing. Guess I should have gone the other way after all. But at least we cleared some map. I guess that's good. We have a gap here. Yeah, I guess that works. Go ahead and push on through. We'll circle back to the Goblin City. Start peeling off strips. Man, we are way lower on tools than I'd like. Guess I should have held off on repairing all those orc wares. But they are good coin if and when we get back to town. Which, yeah, I think at this point is likely going to end up having to be sooner rather than later, if just to restock. Oop. A hint of murmuring grows louder and louder until you can no longer focus. You put your quill pen down with the sort of energy the ink bottle can take without breaking, and step out of your tent. Rax and Mark are standing there bickering over who is the better shot. Seeing you, they waste little time asking if they can hold a shooting contest to decide who is right. I mean, Rax, man, I love you, but pretty sure Mark's got you on this one. But sure, knock yourself out. Feeling as though their argument will never end, you give them the go-ahead to have their little competition before retiring back to your tent. Soon thereafter, you hear the arrows knocking, releasing, and finding targets. Things which go thwang soon go thwap, and the air is slowly filled with the din of a watching crowd. As you try to focus, you notice that the men have been shooting fervently for quite some time now. You step back out of your tent to find the two archers bickering some more, each one pointing a finger at the other before picking up an arrow and angrily launching it downrange. Their targets aren't even targets anymore, but small bushes of arrow shafts upon which break every other shot that lands upon them. Shaking your head, you order the men to stop at once before they use up every last arrow the company has. Hey, free resolve, we'll take it. Absolutely worth the price. Arrows are plentiful. Permanent stat upgrades, less so. Also, Orc Fort, HairTorque, which is a tempting target, but not what we're out here for, so we'll skip it for the moment. We're going to do some scouting, but we will likely circle back for it at some point. Our main goal right now, though, is Goblin outposts. Such as that. Velox Charax. Which, honestly, might be a bit much for the amount of time we've got left. Though, I mean, it is pretty doable. Let me poke around a bit more. Yeah, we're not going to waste time on that. Though that would be good fodder for evening. No, not with warriors, actually. Scratch that. Evening is absolutely not ready for orc warriors. Come on, what else we got? Give me a little one. A little goblin fort. Though, I mean, again, we are going to knock all of these out. At some point, we just have to kind of triage at the moment. ThunderClan hideout. Okay, you know, not entirely what I wanted, but that will do. A nice easy one to close out on, also a chance to bust out Evening, who otherwise remains benched, since, you know, sadly he's nowhere near ready for any of these more advanced engagements. With multiple potential targets pinged, the raiders set to the task of prioritizing, starting with the simplest of the ones they had sighted, so as to starve the others of much-needed reinforcements. Once the carnage had begun, a small sortie of some of their least experienced dispatched, sent to deal with a bunch of berserkers near the back. Douglas at their fore, much more eager to face orcs than he was to face goblins, it would seem. Which makes sense, given that he's a hammer bro. And thus begun another brief but bloody encounter. The raiders warily moving in. The berserkers bull rushing forth without a care. As per usual. No doubt in their dim-witted minds that they would somehow come out of this encounter victorious, despite being outnumbered nearly 2-1. An illusion the raiders were entirely happy to let them embrace, if just for a moment or two longer, since, of course, it lured them right into their line. But once they drew close enough, the trap snapped shut. The raiders rushing forth in turn. Raiders settling in on south, but carefully keeping their distance on north, just out of that axe-wielding orc's effective reach. Evening swinging in on south, once again buoyed by his new boon companions. Trip plugging the gap, as did his blade. Alois and Arrow soften them up. One berserker losing his bravado. And the orcs push back. Albeit very ineffectually. Zarmal darting in. Landing a quick hit, throwing the axe-wielding orc off balance. Trip chipping away at another's resolve on south. Douglas bloodied, though still standing strong. Giannis sliced through center. Mansplitter subdued. We'll leave that one for evening. Oof. Doug, buddy, you're really gonna have to step it up if you want to survive. But, you know, there are maybe some doubts that that's your actual end goal. You know, we'll worry about that later down the line. Alois broke another brute. Arrow piercing an ear. Random rang another's bell. Rook legging it before another could run. And yeah, we're pretty much done. Diego dispatched the fourth to last. Evening the third. Nicely done, my friend. I mean, look, you're never going to be a top-notch warrior, but at least you're doing something. Doug? Hey, there we go. And so terrified was he that the final orc simply finished himself. Which was fine. It was still very educational. Evening walking away with yet more worldly experience. And some meager goods as well. Yeah, again, not as many tools as I really would have liked. But enough to keep us going for at least a little while longer, I suppose. Another outpost. Maybe 2 at a stretch, after which we definitely need to get back to the nearest town to top back off. But honestly, I think that's fine. I think this was always destined to be at least a 2-trip thing. You know, assuming we can even handle the Goblin City at the end, that's still far from a foregone conclusion. But it will certainly be fun finding out. Oh man, evening, those are some pretty rough rolls. But we'll take the resolve, we'll take the... I mean, we should probably take the defense, but we do also need health, we do need fatigue. Yeah, we'll take the fatigue. If we can't... I mean, honestly, I don't think his defense is ever going to be all that great. But if we bulwark him out, that'll still give him some decent staying power. No, we'll take the defense. Middling roll's better than none. Sadly, though, based on the numbers we're seeing right now, I do think he's going to land pretty mid-tier, which is fine. I mean, it's serviceable. That's at least a third of our current crew. Seymore, Drakiith, etc. We'll go ahead and grab Polearm Mastery. That'll give him a bit more range with that poleaxe. Though long-term, I am starting to think about swapping it out. If we can, like, get our hands on a good sword lance, that might be a fun compromise. But that's for future retcon to worry about. For now, we'll simply make do. That's it. I think that brings us to a pretty good place to call it. Pretty, honestly, pretty eventful episode. We encountered the Orc Slayer, we found the fabled Goblin City. We even culled our first outpost, though we've still got a ways to go there, 4 more. With 1 on the map. So, yeah, I'd say I'm pretty happy with that. We'll hit the pause button for now, I'll take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping. And we will pick up here next time, as we keep running our gobs. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Bowman, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.